And hello, welcome to News from the Pew, where we take news from around the interwebs and distill it to make it slightly less frightening. I'm your host, Rick Barrett, and we have our entire panel is back with us. So, from the great state of Kentucky, it is Fawaz Yazi. From the great state of Georgia, is Mr. Jonathan Arrington, and representing Lindsey Graham, South Carolina, it is the one and only Steve Cunningham.
Why you gotta say Lindsey? Why you gotta do that, man?
Oh, I'm sorry. You know what? You're right. Representing Nancy Mesa, South Carolina, it's the one and only Steve Cunningham. That's not good either. Okay, representing Tim Scott, South Carolina, it's the one and only Stephen Cunningham. So the reason I mentioned those three is that besides those three and every other GOP member who is itching to make some more money off the war machine that they're trying to spin up, that's happening in the Middle East. We had old Joey B, who has still not gone to Palestine, Ohio, and has refused to help any and all Americans here in these United States in any way, shape, or form, except another story we'll talk about a bit. Hopped on a plane and flew into an active war zone. And it wasn't really a great look.
Operating within the rules of war that you talked about last week being so important.
I don't know what's going on with Virginia, by the way.
Thank you, sir. Everybody.
Joe Biden stumbled out of his basement to tell America we shall now be fighting two wars, since, after all, we can afford it. As Wall Street Silver put it, of course we can't afford two wars. We can't even afford peace. The current resident of the White House delivered the news on 60 Minutes, where interviewer Scott Pelley asked, are the wars in Israel and Ukraine more than the United States can take on at the same time? Biden responded angrily, no, we're the United States of America, for God's sakes, the most powerful nation in the world, not in the world, in the history of the world, the history of the world. This is all direct quotes. He added, we can take care of both of these and still maintain our overall international defense. In other words, the wars will continue despite $2 trillion deficits and $34 trillion in national debt, along with yet more trillions in deficits when the recession actually hits in force. Why? Because the most powerful in the history of God's sake does precisely that. It goes bankrupt, blowing things up, or being blown up all over the world. Biden went on to say the reason we're involved in Ukraine, giving them weapons, intelligence, $100 billion here and there, risking a dollar collapse in World War III, is so that we don't get drawn into a European war. So we're involved in a European war, so we don't have to get involved in a European war. A lesser intellect might respond that perhaps the way to not get drawn into a war is not to get drawn into it. But Joe Biden is playing 3D chess here. Moreover, what's concerning is that it's not just the two wars. That little throwaway line at the end there, the overall international defense, that is referring to the 200-odd mini-wars the Pentagon keeps on a simmer and hopes one of them could someday grow up to be a real war and raise Lockheed's dividend. One recent chart from Visual Capitalist shows precisely 177 countries in which the U.S. military are deployed. An updated list would actually have to include most of sub-Saharan Africa, including vital interest Burkina Faso and Taiwan, where the U.S. has now stationed Marines to ensure a guaranteed tripwire for World War III. So what is next? Brought to you by Unchained. What's next is the military-industrial complex is gutting America, draining our blood and dwindling treasure to make America the maximum number of enemies in the shortest amount of time. This actually puts the American people in danger. It is the precise opposite of defense, while keeping hundreds of wars on simmer worldwide, killing people on both sides. In his 1961 farewell address, Dwight D. Eisenhower warned of exactly this, saying, quote, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence by the military-industrial complex. The potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power exists and will persist. There was a rush of momentary optimism a few years ago with Trump, who was deeply hostile to the permanent wars. Unfortunately, with Trump now out of power, both of America's political parties are dominated by warmongers. And so Eisenhower's disastrous rise of misplaced power is upon us. Today it's two wars. Tomorrow will be three. They literally will not.
Yeah. This is what they were really upset about when Hillary was not able to get in 2016, besides from the murder of children, was the continuation of the war state. And so they've made up for lost time, Fawaz. They really have, because they are just doing whatever they can. Now, he said that Biden was playing 3D chess. It's really more like 2D checkers, but I'll throw it your way.
Well, Biden is not doing anything. First of all, good to be with everybody. Biden is watching Matlock and eating a TV dinner every night. We all know who's really behind all this. I mean, even beyond the president who was here from 2008 to 2016, who's running everything from a shadow government that he calls it. But even beyond that, there's all these other players that contain all the umbrella in which get to control all of these puppets. I mean, at this point, is it even a conspiracy theory? When Trump came in 2016, they called him the aggressor. He's going to start World War III. Trump was not innocent in his bombing and droning of certain countries. I think the first month of his presidency, he just bombed Afghanistan just because he said he could, just to show the great might of the U.S. Look, I'm all about leading with strength, and I mean Reagan did that in the 80s. Trump tried to do that in the 4 years, but apparently, war is very, very, very beneficial if you really to accelerate the Antichrist coming. Because listen, you have to look at this in the eyes of Revelation, and you know the Antichrist coming at the end of times. It's not. I'm not saying this in the end of days. It's not private revelation. It's actually public revelation. It is in Scripture. So that being said, if you look at the lens as a Catholic, stop seeing everything. We need to stop seeing everything as a piece of puzzle as it comes through. Just the whole lens as a Catholic, you know how this is going to end. You know how this is going to play out. We just don't know the time or the hour. We don't know how the Antichrist is going to introduce himself. But right now, we are in a bit of a mess. If you look at the wars across the world, they're funny. I mean, if you look at, we've already spent $70 billion in Ukraine. Biden is asking for $100 billion, 40 for Israel, even though we give them about $12 million almost a day for their defense. And then you've got another 60 going to Ukraine that he wants. Obviously, you've got a Speaker of the House, which is Jordan. I mean, I think they're all compromised, every single one of them. It just depends on who's more compromised than the other. Jim Jordan would probably have not gone with the spending. He would prioritize somewhere else because everybody's bought and paid for. It just depends on who you're working with. Just like NASCAR, they have their advertisement on their car. They should have a Letterman's jacket with who's bought you and who's paid for your support, and then all the lobbyists in Washington. So, but the biggest money laundering and the biggest way to escalate as much issues as possible to cause a great divide, and this country is divided. This is divided even more. Now we got Palestine versus Israel. I mean, we can't agree on anything. So this country was the last stand. It's going to fall, unfortunately. It's not going to be pretty. And if you have a possible World War III, you have all the problems coming in. As a Catholic, we should be praying for peace, not war, not this person wins the war, that person wins the war. We don't have a dog in this fight as Catholics. Muslims and Jews, they've been hating each other for thousands of years. Unfortunately, we need to pray for the protection of Catholics and conversion of those who are not in the faith. That is number one. But if chaos ensues, if there's chaos, then there has to be just like COVID. Here's a pandemic. Well, here's a vaccine. Here's every issue that's caused by them, they have a solution for. And the solution for ultimate chaos, global chaos, is going to be that figure that unites the world. Which is the Prince of Evil, which is the person who works for the Prince of Evil. And this is how I'm seeing things kind of come together. It's going to get worse. But Our Lady did promise peace. I don't know how it's going to work out. That's not my job. It's above my pay grade. That's headquarters decision. But yet, like war. More war. If the world is going to, in a hand basket, then don't you think that the machine is going to grab as much money as they possibly can from the taxpayers before the ship sinks? And I just think that's what they're doing.
Very well spoken on that, because there's multiple things that were addressed there. That is correct. Country is divided. Everybody is bought and paid for, and they don't work for you. But the fact of the matter is, John, we are still dealing with all of this, and we're still sitting through all of this. Can you speak a little bit? You did last week as well, and this may be a little bit dicey, but I'm going to throw it to you. The idea that we as conservatives have to support Israel because it's Israel of the Bible, right? That it's the one that we have to support because of Judeo-Christian values, and so forth. So I don't know if you wanted to address that before that question gets us taken off this stream.
I'm kind of glad you asked that, because the more
I do what I can.
the more I was thinking about it, I think because that has been associated with Protestants in the past, and because it got even so many, I'd say otherwise well-intentioned Catholics in trouble with what happened in Iraq after, with Bush Jr. and all. I think that the greater danger for our folks, the ones who would be deign to listen to us right now, or just hear out what we're saying and suggesting, is perhaps going to the other extreme and siding with Palestine. So hear me out. I'm certainly not a shrill for Israel in any way, shape, or form, as you could ask anybody that's known me for the last 20 years, especially family members who think I'm insane for not being a cheerleader for Israel. But in any case, there are you got St. George, kind of supposedly died there in Palestine and kind of a patron of Palestinian Christians for so long, and then after the the Middle Ages and the Crusades, St. George, thanks to really Palestinian Christians, taken back as a patron in so many countries. Like England, it's how it got popular in English-speaking countries, is thanks to the Crusaders from England, at least in part. And so, I think among devout Catholics, there's always been naturally, like a love for the Christians in that area. And if you've read a little bit of kind of recent history since the 50s or 60s in the interplay between Christians, Israelis, and Palestinians, I mean, there's no clear-cut answer on who the Christians are really siding with. They recognize that there are some things that the Israelis and the Israeli government give them more leeway for, and some things the Palestinians are much better for. It's a mess on either side. And the best, it's funny, Steve's got this clip that he's going to probably share in a little bit. Hopefully he doesn't interrupt me now with it though. With the Egyptian comedian. And he said something that I think really nails it. And if we bear this in mind as Catholics, I don't think we'll go to any extreme. And that is that, especially as Fawaz kind of pointed this, it's not really our issue here. When we're dealing with non-Christians, especially here, I mean, the overwhelming majority on either side, overwhelming majority. And we're like well over 80%. So overwhelming majority, non-Christians, there is no good guys versus bad guys here, right? And especially if you know a little bit about the history. Now, when you say that, you want to follow up with one key moral distinction, and hopefully nobody but just a complete zealot or pundit on one side or the other would ever come back at you with anything. Just because you say neither side is a bunch of angels or saints doesn't mean that if you could line up each and every unjust act or violent act even over, let's say, the last 70 years in that area, because violence has been going on for over that, but 70 years has been pretty bad. Doesn't mean you can't distinguish and say, well, this one seems to be clearly worse than that one, and so on and so forth. Maybe actually handle a lot of them that way. Yeah, you could distinguish the single acts by one against the other, and rate them in terms of which one's worse. You can actually do that. That's feasible. You're not going to know about every act, right? Surely there are some that kind of are under the radar, so to speak. But as long as you bear those two things in mind, yes, we're not denying there are gradations in the horror of some of these acts of terror that have come on both sides, and that there's no truly good side or completely evil side. that's like steeped in evil, unless you're always using the word ultra Zionist Israeli versus Hamas led and completely obediently following everything Hamas says Palestinian. You're not talking about like one side being perfectly good or evil. Sorry, it's just like it's not the way human nature works, and it's really not even the way organizations work. Even the worst of organizations, you can find somebody who's just got that soft spot that is going to try every once in a while to scoot a good thing in there, and there's room for conversion. And so in any case, I'd say the bigger thing now is just not to go on either extreme, recognizing that neither group is led by a truly Christian outlook of the other side, right? They've each one of the more extreme groups that's kind of at the head right now is seeing the others, as we talked about last week, and even, I don't know, probably mentioned before, as either demons or dogs, so animals or diabolical creatures. So we got to recognize it as Catholics. Sorry, that's beyond us. We don't go there. We don't at least, except out of like a heightened rhetoric, we don't use those sorts of terms about other people. That's not the way it works, right? And so there's got to be some idea. If we're Catholics here, we're talking about what would the Catholic response be if people wanted to listen to Catholics in that area. It wouldn't have anything to do with completely demonizing or animalizing the other side. As long as we do that, then I think we'll come out of this much clearer than 99.9% of the people out there that are saying anything publicly.
Excellent point. Excellent. Thank you for clearing that up and giving us a little bit of insight there. Steve, War Machine's going to War Machine, and it's pretty simple to see that, you got Joey B, when he's actually has his full adrenaline shot, talking about how he can fight pretty much everybody around the world, even allies and adversaries. And the fact of the matter is that we haven't met recruitment goals for the military in a couple years, and who knows where it goes from there. But the government is taking advantage of the government being in charge.
Yeah, Scott Ritter was on with the judge the other day saying that Hamas and Hezbollah is just basically waiting for people to come in. So then he asked the question, why don't you think that Israel hasn't infiltrated there or sent the troops in? He goes, because they will be destroyed. And he goes, if we have 200 of our Marines, he goes, back in the day, those words meant something. These days, they're woke. Their physical fitness is way down. It's not the same as it used to be. And he goes, what's 200 Marines these days going to do about 10,000 Hezbollah guys? They would get utterly destroyed, just like in Ukraine, where they're getting it handed to them right now. You don't hear that on mainstream news, but because that's why I got my fatigues on, just in honor of the late great former artist known as Zelensky, who we forgot about him. He got cheated on the past couple of weeks, and the money's now going to the new girl on town, which is Israel, most favored nation. So yeah, it's and they won Iran, they won Taiwan, they won China. That's why their boats are in Taiwan that we talked about months ago. That little circle that was getting completed that I've been covering on Clown Planet, and here. As what's his face started at the beginning of the thing on economics, we are stretched. If you watched a couple years ago, if you watched football, you would see on Fox, they would say now broad streaming in 183 nations and bases. And you would think they're going, wow, we're 183 locations in the world. So because they were proud of that. We are streaming this football game all over the place in 183 bases and things around the world. And it's like we're still in Germany. Where do you think the Nazi regime, which they're still Nazis, are we waiting for Hitler to rise back up? I mean, how do we not leave those people alone? If there was a base in your backyard, would you be cool with that? There was a movie called, was it Werewolves? Not Werewolves, Wolverine. It was about, I think it was China or Japan invading Washington State. And these militia, which were kids, rose up against them. They called Wolverines because it was their high school mascot. Really cool show, but it also shows that we wouldn't stand for the stuff that we do to other people. but we just say, we raise the flag and just bow and say, USA, we're the greatest country in the history of countries. On top of that, in the history of the world, just like what you heard with Biden said, we're America. What does that mean? We're America. We can do 40 wars at once. We're America. It's a cartoon anymore. I mean, speaking of cartoons and laughter, we'll bring up what Jonathan was talking about. Here's an Egyptian comedian on just to liven it up with Piers Morgan.
First of all, what is your reaction to what happened on October the 7th?
Oh, it was terrible, of course. I mean, we kind of get our news kind of also secondhand because, you know, my wife's family, they live in Gaza. They have cousins and uncles there, and their house also was bombed. We haven't been able to communicate with them for the past 3 days. Communication are lost. So we don't know actually what is the how are they doing, but you know, we're used to that. I mean, it's just like it's very repetitive. We're used to that. We're used to them being bombed every time and moving from one place to the other. You know, it's just like those Palestinians. They're very dramatic. Israel killing us, but they never die. I mean, they always come back. You know, they're very difficult to kill. Very difficult people to kill. I know because I'm married to one. I tried many times, couldn't kill her.
I mean, there's a dark humor there, and I understand why. Because
no, it's not dark humor. I try to get to her every time, but she uses our kids as human shields. I can never take her out.
That was great. He does that throughout the whole thing. It's fantastic, but it's good that he has some light humor in that. But it's there's a lot of the truth into it. They can't get the information out. Why? Because Israel killed the internet, the water. There's a couple of guys, if you check out again, Last American Vagabond, he gets into it much more where you got 4 locations and you got the, remember that pipe, that photo of the pipe that everyone's showing a couple. So I put misinformation in the title because it is a misinformation war. We're at a war of information. And you got data coming all over, kind of like a communist idea, just here. And what is true? What is not? I mean, so they had this thing about the Hamas building these makeshift missiles out of water pipe. That's why they're not getting the water. Actually, that photo was like 3 or 4 years ago. And they were showing that, yes, they were taking those pipes that were Israeli water pipes because the Israeli sections get the clear water and the Palestinian guys get 95% polluted water. And that's why, so with the water they don't have, you saw a video of the guy just in Israel just lapping up water, kind of like poking his nose at them. So you see people clipping photos like that, say, hey, look at these guys. They're cutting off the water so they can make the photo is 3 years old. Yeah, the 40 baby thing. And you got where I got it up here. Where is he at? Good old Ben Shapiro. I thought I had it up here.
Ben Shapiro pretty much lecturing us on how we have to blow stuff up every 20 minutes now. Yeah,
well, and Ben could post that photo of a dead baby. It was a burnt baby. He said, "Look at here's the burnt baby," and it was AI generated. You could use 10i, you could use an AI way back thing, and it proved that it was AI generated. It wasn't real, but he will lie to get you to do what he wants you to. And nobody really called him out. Nobody in Daily Wire called him out. I mean, there's Catholics that are defending him tooth and nail. Oh, that was proven.
That's what we call who signs the paychecks. That's
because he signs the paychecks. You talk about you have no principle. We're going to be martyrs. You can't say no to Ben Shapiro. You can't say no to a paycheck. Call out the truth. Speak the truth, whether in season or out of season. You ain't got the guts to say that to him. But so hey, Walsh, where are you guys at? I mean, he literally says Jesus was not a prophet of any sort. It's just some rebel. Oh, that's cool. He's my boy. Yeah, but anybody else says anything, you jump on him in a heartbeat or make a movie about it. Just make some income out of it. Sorry, getting off topic. But here's
you to address the question of credibility, because frankly, the IDF has a less than perfect track record with the issue of credibility. Among other incidents, the Israeli government initially claimed that it was armed Palestinian militants who killed the journalist Shireen Abu Akleh, which we know is not true. So why should the world trust you now?
Because of the importance of credibility, and in the past we had ourselves were fast to go to conclusions. This is why in this event we took the time. Took us more than 5 hours. We wanted to double check everything.
So we lied about a lot of things, but believe us now. I mean, C.J. Hopkins has a great or at least to a great article that I put in a Clown Planet yesterday about, we were talking about the hospital thing. Everyone's saying, oh, these guys did this, these guys did this. Oh, it's Looney Tunes. The thing went everything like that. Or it was a JDAD or whatever, the missile for the Iraq or Israeli Air Force. Nobody really knows. And then you had photos. Oh, it looks like the parking lot got here. Oh, the dead body. What the heck is going on here? But he shows this link, and it shows that the Israeli guy is saying, hey, we're going to bomb the hospital tomorrow. But then that got deleted. And then they put up another one, and somebody from Germany goes, well, that was 40 minutes different. The timestamp doesn't add up. So, and it goes on for, it's a 5-minute read. And you're just going to scratch your head. What the heck? Why World Sports is going on here? Here's Tucker and Vivek.
Look, the idea that we would in any way abet a nuclear program in any country, particularly in Saudi Arabia, is so destabilizing and crazy. It suggests that people have lost their awe of their fear of nuclear weapons. I'm watching people on television, on the internet, sort of blithely talk about the possibility of the use of nuclear weapons in this conflict. I watched it 5 times yesterday. Can we agree that anyone who sort of throws out, well, maybe they'll use nukes, is insane? You'd have to be a mental patient to say something like that. Who are these people?
I mean, either that or so profoundly ill-informed about what the consequences would be for the United States. And so I really can't speak for the mental state of some of these people, Tucker, who are viewing the expansion and nuclear proliferation to Saudi Arabia, or the consequences.
People are saying, oh, this could go nuclear. If pushed, we'll go nuclear. They'll go nuclear. Go nuclear.
Yeah. Think about the consequences.
Millions died.
That would be.
I mean, and the consequences of it are impossible to foresee, but we can guess.
Yeah.
You got Nikki Haley wanting to be Mortal Kombat. Finish them all. Level the place. It is absolutely insane. Here's the what's her face from was it Germany? Where I have it at here. Here's talking about Russia.
Targeted attacks on civilian infrastructure.
Just read that part to make it clear on your mind.
With a clear aim to cut off men, women, children of water, electricity, and heating. With the winter coming.
Isn't that literally what's going on right now, right?
These are acts of pure terror, and we have to call it as such.
That was against Russia.
Israël a le droit de se défendre.
Says the mantra, Israel has the right to defend itself.
L'Union européenne se tient aux côtés d'Israël.
So again, it goes back to what we were talking. War crimes is okay when we do it, or most favored nation does it. And if you say anything contrary, you are automatically pro-Hamas, anti-Israel. No matter if you. I mean, I talked to Jonathan about this yesterday. I go, dude, I had people call me up or comment on a link because I put up a link that goes to a 3-hour video that's sourced, material sourced, like I do Clown Planet. That's where I got the idea for Clown Planet, was from the Vagabond, and they go, oh. You're saying that you hate Israel. You're pro-Hamas. I go, 1, did you click the link? 2, did you watch the 3 hours? Because it first starts off talking about the Rona. And 4, where in the wide world sports is this false dichotomy of, well, if you don't stand for X, then you have to stand for Y. How about we stand for humanity? This guy is wrong. This war crimes is bad when these guys do it, just like war crimes is bad when these guys do it. Yet many aren't calling us out. Thankfully, which I hit the wrong button. There's some that are, the kind of narrative is starting to fall apart. You see people on the BBC News. Here's Spain, I think it is. Yeah, Spain's Minister of Social Rights, given the attempted genocide being carried out by the state of Israel in Gaza, we propose that the government of Spain take Netanyahu before the International Criminal Court of War Crimes. And even his own people are wanting his, I don't know if they want his blood, but they're protesting him, saying, you did this. There's articles about how Netanyahu boosted up Hamas. Israel created Hamas. Ron Paul talked about that. Even Israel News has talked about that. So it's almost, it's a false, in a sense, it's a big false flag going on. I don't know what that right hook's going to be. I'm pretty sure it's going to be long run. They want war because war generates the war machine, takes away more rights. Israel is one of the top. It was Pfizer's. It was the Pfizer.
It was the laboratory for Pfizer.
Lab,
Remember, they came out and they said 99% of their population was jib jab jobbed.
Yeah, back in the, and it's also already got a CBDC. It's already got the digital passports rolling in. It's a very, very big surveillance state. What is one of the things they said when all that went down last week when we played the former military lady? She said that, you're telling, she goes, a cat walks by the gate and the military is there. This happened, like she said, 15 or 20 different spots where they quote unquote crossed over. She goes, that doesn't happen unless she thinks it was planned out. So, okay, what did they say? Well, we didn't have surveillance, so we didn't know because we couldn't see what it was doing. Guess what's coming down that pipe over there? You're going to get what they have. They already call it the Israel 9/11, and as Fawaz brought up at the beginning, what do we have? Or there's other guy, and the other guys were talking about it too on the economic shows and things. And what we have is what we're going to have after 9/11, surveillance beyond belief. You already have, the Hill talked about it. You'll have the TSA's things at a massive, more scale everywhere, especially you'll see in Israel and Palestine. It's going to be just like I said last week, it'll be a 15-minute city. You're going to see what the technocracy is wanting to implement real quick because that takes away for your safety, we got to take away all these rights of yours and make sure that we have all seeing eye looking down on you, maybe like a Minority Report. When they have somebody, we're going to prevent these crimes. We'll just kill people before they do it because our AI says it's going. And everything's moving AI very quickly. And people have been talking about that for years. So, yeah, expect some really weird and crazy, nutty stuff going down. And almost like here's the keys. Take it. Like, Tucker and Vivek were talking about going, what is wrong with these people? You're seeing the clown mask come off a lot of these people, their true colors, and it is evil.
Yeah, absolutely. It really is crazy to see all of this line up the way it does. And as we talk about, when it happens fast. When it goes bad pretty quickly.
Yeah. I mean, here's Bush negotiating with killers. Hey, what is Mr. War Criminal himself? He's doing well for himself. No one goes after these guys. So in the long run, we're the ones going to pay for all this.
Oh, we already are. I mean, the fact of the matter is we are already paying for it with the amount of taxes that are being shipped off and all of that stuff. So yeah, we are already paying for it. And the fact of the matter is that we don't have any representation. And that speaks to what's going on in the House of Representatives right now. We have Jim Jordan is supposed to be I just saw that they're going to try a third vote today to maybe get him to become speaker after failing the other two times. And the fact of the matter is, it doesn't matter who you put in there. I think it was Fawaz mentioned it. It doesn't matter if you put Jim Jordan in there or Matt Gaetz or anybody else. You might get somebody who's a little less compromised than others. But, we're all getting clowned on, if you really want to be completely honest, with this clown show that's taking place in the House of Representatives right now.
But do you think that I think that I'm against Speaker Light. I'm against Bud Light. I believe it is a constitutional desecration to not elect a Speaker of the House. We need to stay here until we elect a Speaker. And if someone can't get the votes, we need to go on to the next person. But twisting and torturing the Constitution to empower a temporary speaker is having a Speaker Light that is not constitutionally contemplated, is deeply infirm, and I will do everything possible to stop it.
Yeah, I mean that's a fun speech by Matt Gaetz, but are we really getting anywhere with this? Even first of all, does it even matter about mentioning the U.S. Constitution because nobody's following it anyway? I guess Matt Gaetz is like the one guy there that's following it, and everybody else is just like, "That's cute, buddy." But this whole thing is just a mess.
Yeah, and I generally I like Matt. I think he's a fighter. I think he's a bit more than he could chew here. He's going against a machine that has been established and is powerful beyond measure. Nothing Our Lady can't handle. That's why we need to go to Our Lady rather than, focusing on all of our efforts trying to do things the natural way. But I will say this. All of the events that are happening are kind of interesting because you got the dwindling support for Ukraine after a year of, because in the heights of it, everybody put up their Ukraine flags. I mean, we went from COVID to Ukraine pretty quick. Ukraine ended COVID. Netanyahu ended Zelensky. So Everybody put up their Ukraine flags. Everything was going great. It was high support for Ukraine. Let's print as much money as possible and give it to Ukraine because we have the support. After a while, when people started to realize that this war in Ukraine is causing gas prices to go up, inflation to go up, safety in our country, and hey, say what you want. The concept of MAGA is a good thing. Make America Great Again is a good thing, because if America is good, America is prosperous, America is strong, I think the whole world then follows. Because I mean, one of the best things that America could do is, number one, not take. We already take about 2 million immigrants here legally. But the worst thing that we could do for the world is to try to take all of these smart people across the world who could then stay there and make their countries better. See, I'm big. I mean, I want even more of a smaller local level. I'm big on the principle of subsidiarity. Make everything smaller. And unfortunately, right now we have complete globalism. You have a couple of countries fighting it in Hungary, but now Poland has fallen. The liberal party has taken over through election, which I don't buy, because the majority of Polish people want isolationism. And Poland was standing in the way. I wonder if there is a private prophecy. Obviously, we don't buy into those as much, but we'll see what happens. I forgot the name of the mystic, but she did say that Russia will eventually end up taking over a lot of Europe, and I think that Muslims across Europe will help Russia take over as they start clearing some of these things up. And well, Poland, being one of those countries that didn't accept any Muslim immigrants, now we're going to get an influx of them, just in time for the Palestinians who need refugees. Which is funny, because it's never women and children; it's always young men who are ready to fight and breed. So here's my thing about the whole Speaker of the House. Jim Jordan was going to be a better speaker than a lot of these speakers. I think. Is he compromised to some degree? Yes. You can't get up there unless you are. Is Trump compromised? You betcha. What I think about the Speaker of the House is, I think we were starting to see a dwindling of support for Ukraine, and then now you get this whole thing started in Israel. I don't think this thing was accidental. Like Steve says, a cat goes through. It's surveilled. You get a whole military there. All of a sudden, the dome goes out, and everybody's in suburban homes, killing women and children. Somebody left the back door open. So I think now the support for Israel is higher than the support in Ukraine. They only had one problem. We didn't like McCarthy. Now, McCarthy is supporting Jim Jordan. But we all know, behind closed doors, Scalise and McCarthy are setting up deals with the 21 or 22 folks to vote no. Because then McCarthy could say, well, we tried, get me back in January. And that's what's going to happen. Matt Gaetz is fighting it, but he's going to lose ultimately. He might have won a little bit of a battle here, but eventually he's going to lose this whole war because the machine is too strong to mess with right now. I think eventually it'll teeter and it'll fall, but Jim Jordan will not be the Speaker of the House. If he is, I'll be surprised. And I think they're going to have this speaker who nobody picked sit there until January, and then they're going to throw McCarthy right back in there.
That would be interesting to have McCarthy come in on the, the white horse and be the savior of this entire process after being bounced. So I don't know, John. The idea here is it's very it's so backstabby. It's so childish. It's so middle school, like lunch table nonsense. And it just really is a bad reflection of those who purport to be better than us.
Yeah, hey, that's well put, Rick. Wow, I mean that. Yeah, when you put it like that, that actually kind of reminds me of something that's been floating around in my head. Is in regard to just the stuff we were talking about earlier with the war and all. I can't remember. Oh, that's right. It was Tucker talking about the folks who were saying, "Yeah, bring on basically saying, bring on war, come on, let's go get them.
I already know it.
Yeah. I mean, Tucker noted that these guys, and we've talked about this, I think, before a few times. These guys that talk like this do not have children. Okay. They are, God knows what they do to, since we know they're not monks, nuns, or living out some sort of vow of celibacy. God knows what they do to, take care of the burn, as St. Paul puts it there. But we probably don't want to think about that. Goodness gracious, for those rot characters. But because they don't have children, they don't really have to think about the consequences of their actions in the same way that we do. I mean, we're thinking about things as they are naturally going to roll out, and they're going to have effects. Look, I'm not sitting here quoting Laudate Deum to you, but they're going to have effects on the environment. Let's just say there's nuclear fallout. Families, so, as Fawaz was talking about the instability by having to move around different men. How dare you? And they're going to be jumping around, from place to place much more easily than families could. So they're going to have the ease of movement to get to places where it's more salubrious, healthier to be. So stuff like this brings to mind the way these folks are acting. I think Rick just nailed it. They're acting like kids because they can, actually. Look, we can rightfully mock the overladen bureaucracies that exist in the U.S. But one thing about it is the thing kind of runs on its own. Like, the people that want to be getting paid right now and would probably cause all living hell if they didn't get paid, they're still getting paid despite any sort of shutdown. You can bet that the folks in office right now are not suffering in the least from this when it's all said and done. And that is because, they're taking care of themselves here. They're not acting like self-sacrificing parents who would make sure their kids, if there's a food shortage or something, the kids are going to eat first. And then if there's anything left, hey, dad'll eat the scraps, right? Whatever the kids refuse to eat. I mean, I guess it's because this comes to my mind. As a family, we try to eat every meal when I'm not involved in some sort of work or something. We try to eat every single meal together. And so just you see the way kids act, you see the way adults act at a meal, especially when we eat with other family members. And there's a big difference. And so these folks in Congress, what I'm getting at is they act childish because, for right now they can. They don't have to worry about the consequences that adults, especially with children or with a true love for their own family or for those, a true love for the others that are around them that is not being completely selfish, would have to show. So yeah, they can, for right now, they can kind of get away with this because, hey, their needs are being met and all, or their wants, I should say, their wants are being met.
They'll never suffer, right? I mean, it's almost a cliche to reference the Hunger Games, but it really is the capital and the districts. I mean, it works as a cliche because it's so on the money, especially with the way you're seeing rich areas become more wealthy, poor areas become more lower income. And, the meme is out there that, and I might be jumping the gun, but it's set up for our next segment. The meme is out there that millennials and people who are lower in age can't afford a house, or they can't afford any of these other kinds of stuff. And their boomer grandparents are like, well, then just stop getting coffee. It's like, no. If you look at the actual inflation from when you bought a house in the 50s, when you could do it on one income, now, you got like 4 jobs and you still can't afford to make your electric bill each month. But Steve, despite all that economic trouble, despite Bidenomics in full swing, we talked about it last week. We'll just reiterate it. Crane City will never suffer any kind of setback because that's where the money is being printed from. It doesn't have any backing, but it's being printed from there.
And who was at Feinstein? Wasn't she the one that died a couple weeks ago?
In office, yeah.
Yeah, she. They talked about how much she has in her assets, hundreds of thousands of dollars for those things. You go back to. I'm sorry. Yeah, you go back to JQ? It was John Adams that was JQ. JQ was president. And he was the one that said, "Don't go out for reaching out for monsters to slay." After his presidency, he went back into the House of Representatives because he thought he had more power there than he did at the presidency. Think about that nowadays. We have an elected king, but back in the beginning. the guys who really started this whole thing knew that the power was not supposed to be at the elected king. That you didn't have an elected ruler, which Washington, he did some things that weren't right, and he abused the power. So that's why in 1789, John Carrollton wrote a book, Tyranny Unmasked, and he pretty much said the thing was over. The experiment was over at the end of the 1790s. Now look at it now. That's how off we are right now. Anyways, but yeah, Adams went back and he died broke. I guess they sent a bunch of IOUs to his family, and his kids were irate, saying, "How dare you send?" Where's Greta? Greta, well, come on now. Did the climate get you?
Dare you?
They said, "How dare you?" You need to be more on top of things, Greta.
She must be
She was arrested recently. That does speak out to that.
Must be the cold. But yeah, they were like, "How dare you send us money for all he did for starting this thing up, starting the republic up? You want him to pay after he's dead? You want more from him?" He like said, died broke. Guys now die hundreds of thousands of dollars in wealth, multiple cars, multiple houses, detail for you get presidency, you got the Secret Service for the rest of your life. Libraries named after you, whatever. You've made it. You are set for obviously life if you win. Back then, no, you were just a regular old judge. It's the opposite of Cincinnatus, in a sense. But we don't have that nowadays. And to the speaker thing, here's an odd endorsement for Jordan, though.
Jen Kiggins, many of you have reached out, and I wanted to take a minute to explain what happened in Washington today during our Speaker of the House vote.
A woman in another episode of How I Can Make This About Me.
We were forced to take this vote after Speaker McCarthy was ousted by a small handful of my fellow Republicans because he passed a bipartisan bill to not shut down the government on September 30th. It was a situation in which the minority of the majority was leading our conference. What happened next was that Steve Scalise became the replacement pick by a majority vote. But today we voted on Jim Jordan as Speaker nominee because, again, a minority of the majority was running the conference. In America, majority rules, but this is not what has occurred here in the U.S. House over the past 2.5 weeks. After discussions I've been able to have with Jim Jordan over the past 2 weeks, I'm concerned about our defense budget. Although we share conservative values, Mr. Jordan's government funding plan has the potential to further cut the defense budget, which is already inadequate, in my opinion. Mr. Jordan also voted against keeping the government open on September 30th, and he didn't rule out that shutting down the government wasn't an option for the future. As the representative of Hampton Roads, which is home to the Atlantic Fleet and the East Coast Master Jet Base and thousands of military members and military families and veterans, that's not a vote I'm willing to take. Above all else, I believe that Congress must get back to work, but I will not put the defense budget in jeopardy, especially at a time like this, when we've sent 2 carrier battle groups to sit off the coast of Israel and in harm's way. That's why I support extending the authority of the Speaker pro tem, Patrick McHenry, as we work to overcome the chaos caused by the minority of the majority, so that Congress can get back to work passing appropriations bills, condemning the terrorist actions of Hamas, providing support to Israel, among other work we need to get done. People are still worried about the economy, about paying their bills and securing our border, and our attention should be in getting all this work done, but cannot come at the expense of common sense conservative leadership that promotes unity in our U.S. House. We will vote again tomorrow, and no matter what the result is.
I can't go through the whole thing, but anyway, it's useless. And I mean, here's even Meet the Press talked about this. Here's their 435 seats in House of Representatives. Average population per seat, 765,000. And you go through the list of the increase, but since they stopped that, you can't grow it anymore. And I guess that was a better view right there. You can't grow it anymore. It's set. There's no representative. There's no representative in there. If it didn't stop, and that's what the founders wanted, keep on growing with the population, then it would almost be nothing going on up there. 10,000 House of Representatives. Can you imagine that place filling at 10,000? Maybe you would get calls of people saying, hey, we need to section this thing off. And again, it goes back to, do we think this is a country or not? If it's a country, they don't call the State of the Union the state of the country. They call it the State of the Union. That's why, because it's a union. It's not a country. If it was a country, forget about the states. It's a blanket statement from D.C. all the way down. And, the heck with being run locally, because that's over. And then you could say, you know what? We're not going to fight South Carolina and North Carolina could say, no, we're not going to go to Middle East and do your thing. That's what Bush ended up taking. He usurped that power of the National Guard and centralized everything and then sent them over. And centralization should be the opposite of everything we're wanting in it. That's what everyone's focused. We're focused on DC. We got to focus. Who's going to be the speaker? What kind of like how I told a couple. I did a show with Alec Torres he wrote the book him with Joshua Persecution from Within, and we were talking about that. How people are just losing their minds of everything that goes on in Rome, and it's like, well, it's almost like sitting down and say, well, how did that affect you today? Were you playing on Twitter 24/7 today? Were you on Twitter literally looking online or looking at your phone all day? Did you not play with your kids? Did you not go work out? Did you not go pray? Did you not go to mass? Did you do anything? Shower? But no, did you just watch what Rome was doing? Every step the Holy Father did, and it triggered you. It made you upset. It made you angry and anxious and all that. Or just like the speaker, almost like, does it matter if the speaker, if they got rid of the House of Representatives today and you didn't have the internet, would it change your life? No, but we look at DC as we have to have the president, the right one up there, because that's going to make everything better. And we've talked about that. Jonathan's brought it up, and I keep saying Enoch. Fawaz brought it up. The virtues. If we don't practice the virtue, who the heck cares who's running the ship or not? If we're going to hell in a handbasket ourselves, but we've got to think globally. We are globalist mindset, anyways. We're already indoctrinated to think centralized authority is the thing. And one thing we didn't bring up about the Israel USA connection is Israel is like the U.S. in a lot of things. They almost united in a lot of aspects, and democracy and the foreign, all these stuff that they're doing, we do. And it's almost like our little baby brother over there. It's a 51st state, but it's the greatest 51st state that we have in the Union. We're just waiting for the Oakland Raiders to move over there one of these days. I mean, they will eventually, but
yeah. It's pretty much what we're dealing with politics is a no-win situation for now, which is why you need to just concentrate on your family, lead your family, get your soul in the best state of grace as possible, regardless of what happens.
Buy a couple Enoch CDs, things like that.
Yes, that's right. We'll be celebrating that when it drops very soon. Very, very soon. It'll be.
What was that quote that I heard from one of the saints? I forgot. It said that there's actually zero problems that heaven does not have solutions for.
Yeah,
we're trying so hard to naturally and just politically solve all these problems, but in all reality, you just need some really holy men and women out there that can pray and fast.
No, you got to tweet harder. Wait, I don't know what's wrong with you, man. You figured it out. You got to tweet harder.
Yeah,
yeah, absolutely. But our last story of the day, we'll cover this real quick. We talked about it. I mentioned it before. Bidenomics coming to you, and the fact of the matter is, housing is going to, people like me have been looked at as crazy for a multitude of reasons, but in particular for saying that the housing market is going to collapse at some point very soon. But the fact of the matter is, this thing is going to have to bottom out very soon, especially now that we're seeing interest rates go up. House cost $1,000 more than it did last year at this time. And the fact is that it's not going to get better for many people. And the continuous wars and all these other kinds of things really does speak to a lack of community and to a lack of really any kind of subsidiarity, like Fawaz was saying, or any kind of economic restraint that we've been looking at. So, I mean, this is kind of just a real quick around the horn for this one. Food is more expensive. Housing is more expensive. The idea of the multi-generational family has been completely destroyed. All of these things seem to push us into a state of despair. Solutions or ideas for those listening at home, gentlemen, starting with Fawaz.
Yeah, to me it's a principle of subsidiarity, and it really boils down to what are your treasures, because this whole way of monetary system and the way that money works, it's very Masonic. It's not very Catholic at all. This whole idea of like money being a placeholder for something in the future, while your neighbor is working 3 jobs as a single mother because her husband's passed away, and try to raise kids, and it's just it's horrible. I mean, I'm not about socialism. Trust me, I think that's an evil economic oversight as well, because you have a minority of evil people try to determine where the money goes. But I think that if you could create, in a way, a monetary system where it's a Catholic commonwealth among the people, everybody's got skills, everybody has something to offer. Now here in Kentucky, it's a little bit easier because agriculture is very accessible, to where our natural milk, beef, garden, all of that stuff can be done locally. And also, we have a friend could be the chicken person, where he's providing eggs for the community. And I'm going to say community, I'm talking about everybody living together, because I don't believe in that either. But I think there's if somebody is in for example, finance, and he's able to do your taxes, go to that person. If somebody is in your parish is doing insurance, go to that person. The whole idea of the Daily Wire, which have now, I guess, they're putting out the kids, I guess, the cartoons and shows for children. If Catholics, we have a worldwide network of Catholics that are just so incredibly talented in every way. I mean, from Rick to Jonathan to Steve to Seamus, who does these cartoons. But I think we've kind of gotten used to. I know not you guys, but I know there's some people out there that've gotten kind of used to this, and they've liked this idea of their own brand, the savior complex. That instead of, for all of us teaming up for the greater good, for the queer, we always talk about Christ being the Christ the King, the head of the world, but we want it only if it's done under our brand, under my brand. There's no reaching out and helping one another. So I think that the best thing to do is find traditional Catholics who understand charity in this best way possible, and then creating a commonwealth within the community, and that way, if the world goes where it goes, your treasure is the community, is the friends and the comfort and the resource that you can get together to help. And you've created a new, within this crazy system, you've created a Catholic culture in which your children are going to flourish, because you're not sending them out to the public school to be indoctrinated. So I think that is the best way in the system we're in right now for us to survive, is through a Catholic commonwealth locally.
Excellent point. If you can get to one, that is the goal, the pinnacle at that point. John, your thoughts?
My thought is we got to take that clip of what Fawaz just said and drop that out on Twitter because that was awesome. And I got to say that was my modest little contribution, was just going to be more or less what he said. As y'all were mentioning the housing crisis there, I was thinking I was searching through some stuff a while back. My wife enjoys in our exhausted moments, after 9 o'clock when the kids are finally down, and I look through the interesting homes that are on Realtor or Zillow, and I just put in a few specific things and then check out, what's out there. And one of the things that was interesting, depressing, is that you see these homes that sometimes realtors send out these things, homes for under $300,000 in this area. You check them out, and they're almost all cash only. It's like these young people will think, hey, there's homes out there to be had. Are they saving up like $250 in cash to just drop on a new home? Most young people, not most of them, unless they had an incredible inheritance or somehow owned something in California or Colorado and then sold it and then can move somewhere much cheaper. That's rare. That's very rare, that kind of situation. So that's a disaster. Okay, so what do we do? I like this Rick's idea here of kind of like and Steve of having this solutions watch. of sort, kind of like what Corbett does. So it seems to me what we should do is just what Fawaz suggested, and talking about subsidiarity. Usually we think of subsidiarity primarily as, someone having authority in just this localized level. But the thing is, if you read more carefully and more integrally the popes who talk about subsidiarity, it also refers to the things you can do on the Christian side.
Foreseeing.
Right. So basically what I'm talking about is you can look for someone locally to help with your charity instead of just dropping, like they ask you at some of these grocery stores, you want to add 5 cents for world hunger. Like, no, I'm going to save up consciously 5 cents a day or whatever. I don't know, $1 a day. Yeah, I'm going to save that Starbucks coffee each day, whatever it may be now. And I'm going to give it to someone that I know locally who needs some help. This is how we were able to purchase our first home. Somebody that I had taught a class to knew that we were, looking for a way to afford our first home, and they reached out and gave us the sort of sum that we needed to make a down payment on a home. Just here, that no strings attached, just here, go make it work. That they knew how excited we were for this possibility. It was like, just can't quite make it. And they made it happen. It's people that had the funds. So right now, I don't have the sort of funds to help somebody buy a new home like that. But, we've had a few families around us that have had car accidents. Like, well, maybe I can provide them with just enough to make that first payment so they can actually get on with having a car that can take their whole family to mass or something instead of having to take 2 cars to mass. There's things like this, like that subsidiarity with charity, it is also part of Catholic subsidiarity, because subsidiarity, people can talk about it in kind of the, I don't know if you guys ever heard of Rupke, the German that John Smirak likes so much. He was a Protestant, and he liked a lot of the Catholic subsidiarity ideas for financial reasons. But the thing is, with the Leo the 13th and that whole push behind subsidiarity, it was fully Catholic, and so that's part of what we have to, I guess, make sure is always there. Is not just subsidiarity in regard to local political relationships, but even our use of our, almsgiving, or the Catholic side of things. So, find somebody you can help out like that, pass them along that well-crafted video of what Fawaz just said, and then tell them to pass it on down the line. What keep it going, or whatever they say. When you do a good thing and it just keeps going like that. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. That could be another reason why you would support something like student loan forgiveness, something like that. I know Steve and I have that similar opinion that is not very popular for Steve. Obviously, the biggest reason for seminaries, but another reason why settle these. One of these debts is going to have to get wiped, and that's the thing nobody wants to talk about. One of these debts somewhere is going. Nobody may agree with me, but one of them is going to get wiped somehow, some way. Whether it's the housing bubble crashing and everybody losing that money instantaneously, or, you're going to get charged back somewhere.
Yeah, there's I watched the Reventure website a lot. And if you ever check him out, he does wrong one. You scroll through, he's been on this for years about what's going on. He's about twice a month, he'll post something up. And he did one. He's walking down a neighborhood, and there's a house abandoned. He gives the stats because he runs an app too that shows what's the rents, what's the median prices, all what's up, what's down, what's low, what's going up, what's going down. And it's $1.7 million, and the house is overrun, hadn't had any work on anything, and it's just a ranch. And you're going, how in the wide world sports you're going to pull that off? And there was another link, that article that talked about you have to have at least 100,000, make 100,000 just to be able to afford to buy a house right now. And obviously, the percentages are going up, so it's not a good time. Even when I told my wife, she's like, "Well, what if our owner sells and we got kicked out?" I go, he ain't selling because no one's buying. If you keep up with all this, nobody's buying and nobody's being able to sell. So you just keep renting. But then you'll own nothing and be happy idea starts kicking in your head, because a lot of these newbies coming up from high school, college like this idea of not owning a car, not owning a house. I joke with a guy at the gym with me, he goes, man, if they just waited 20 years, 30 years, wait for us to be dead, they would have taken over, not without even a blip. Would have been a fight, been like, and nothing would have happened. Not even 1 or 2 people were upset. Not like it is now, the pushback and the outrage. But Yeah, the kids going up, they're gonna want this to own nothing. Not even owning a refrigerator. Is the idea they're trying to get people's minds. Is renting it out, and yeah, you can see the pros and cons of renting. You don't have to worry about it. Someone else is replacing it, so instead of you having to replace it. So I get it. Trust me, I live in a rental.
I was about to say, disclaimer: Steve does live in a rental.
Yeah, the AC went down in the middle of July, and all I had to do was call somebody up, and he came over, and I didn't have the bill. So there are some pros to that. There's also some cons. Like I have a garden in the back. I can't use any of that grass. That's useless. People come by, like workers. Yeah, this is a really nice backyard. I go, it's worthless. It's nothing. I mean, it's good to look at. That's it. This section right here where I got it on all these stones right here, this will produce something I can eat. I can't eat a rose. I mean, they're just, But the bubbles are coming big time. The next, was it this month? Next month is the student loans starts back. I would wager to bet that the vast majority aren't going to pay any of that. It won't pay any of the payments. So that's going to get worse and worse and worse. Eventually, that bubble hits. Housing bubble will hit. They already say it's worse than 2008. Great googly moogly, it's going to get bad. There's a lot of industries where bubbles are popping, and is it going to be
car industry? Using the car industry, they are popping pretty terribly.
Yeah, for a while, the joke that I asked me before you guys jumped on. I go, Steve, you got any good news I could use on the episode 2? I go, yeah, I got lots of great news. I know Anthony, I think he might have left. He might have had something. He had to go tweet harder, I think. He's on Twitter all day long when he quote unquote works. But I could black pill people with the best of them. But there's a lot of good news out there. There's a lot of smiling. There's Father Willie Doyle has a line in his spiritual writings about, you must smile. You have to have joy in your life. Even, he's World War I, got this. They don't have his body because of ordnance blew it apart. But he always talked about having joy in life and smile. And the 3 cheers for joy, the motto of the bishop in Vietnam during St. Theophane Bernard's Day. You got it. You just have to keep that joy. And yes, will it suck? Yep, it's going to get worse. Embrace the suck, but figure it out too. So you're not just complaining about things going on. Get on the offense, which I made a podcast about that a year and a half ago or 2 years ago. We Catholics like to be on the defense. A bomb's going down, and we're going, what are we going to do about it? It's back in TC days. We don't know what we were going to do. Everyone's losing their minds. I had a meeting with our Charlotte landmass guys yesterday. We rebooted the group, and one of the guys asked something about the atmosphere. I go, it wasn't like it was 2 years ago when most of you all in here thought the world was coming in, and guess what? The world didn't come to an end. Nothing changed where we're at. One parish ended up changing, but they didn't want to do it anyways. But we can get that back. How do you do it? You get on the offensive. You start changing hearts and minds, selling the product, do it with joy and charity, and eventually you build that society. You build that culture. You build that. But if you just sit back and, as one of the guys talked about, meism is all about the individual. We have a lot of individuals in our circles, and not a lot of team efforts. Someone asked me about this one group doing things with business. I go, I don't know, but if you look on my website, I'm pretty sure, not to toot my own horn, but I'm the only big name out there that has Catholic businesses, and it's all the little guys. And it's a direct link to go to their own sites. You want a pillow? I don't have my pillow. I don't have a code for Mike Lindell. There's a Catholic group. I have a Catholic group in Idaho that makes pillows. Sure, it might be a little bit more expensive, but you're helping a family.
Yeah, I've talked to those guys before. Something Farms or something.
Yeah, something farms like that.
Yeah, they bring like Texas wool. Yeah, they're good people. I've interviewed them. They're real good people.
And when Trinidad, when Trevor gets be able to sell all over, all right, you can support the local guys. But yeah, it's the whole thing about the Bud Light argument. Why are you buying the big dogs anyways? Buy the local guys. And if Trevor gets be able to sell across, help out a Catholic group like that. There's plenty of things. We just, in our mindset, we don't think of economy in the Catholic sense. We think of, I don't want to feel like mass only. It's all about what I want, about what the mass is supposed to be. And if it's not what I like, I'm going to get mad. And then I'm not going to help anybody out. And when I go to mass, I just go and I don't care about the rest of anybody there. There's no community in the sense. There's people that left to go to a local parish church, so they want community. I get it. Because most people are traveling, you don't get to live by each other. Well, you can do that by converting your area. If you just work to strive to take out ads in the local free newspaper, do some apologetics in the little newspaper, open up, work with your local your parish to start like a Q&A or whatever. The Jehovah's Witnesses put stands out at most of the government buildings. Where's our boys? Why can't we put a stand? They don't have a big stand. They have like little things. You can go to St. Paul Street Team, buy the paperwork there, just shove it there. They do it. They shove it there and they leave. We got to get creative and things like that. We really want a Catholic community, which I don't think we really want. We talk a good game. Most trads do. They talk a great game, but when the push comes to shove, they don't really want to. It's all about me. It's all about, let me get my brand. Let me get my name. You want to help somebody else out? No. I got to get my stuff out. Me first, me first, me first. It's the heck with, what was that? That was it yourself, others, Jesus. It was joy. Jesus, are others, yourself. I remember priests talking about that acronym, but it's huge. YOJ.
Absolutely. All right, guys.
I'm sorry, Greta.
How dare you?
Yeah. If you're going to do it, buddy, make sure it works. Time for the cry room, folks. Fawaz, first up, cry room, stand of the week.
Yeah, breaking news. Jim Jordan, I'm still running for speaker and I'm planning to go to the floor to get votes and win this race, but I will talk to a few of my colleagues. So I guess he's putting himself back in the race. And if he does get put through, then there was a backdoor deal. And he's just going to be just like McCarthy.
Yep.
Anyways, my my saint of the week, which is not really a saint, but I just think this is comical, is the guy in Spain who faked heart attacks to get free meals at restaurants. I thought that was kind of funny. I don't know if you guys seen that.
Yeah, that guy's excellent. Modern problems require modern solutions.
Yeah. I mean, it's not virtuous at all. But I just found it funny that he goes in there and eats and pretends he has a heart attack. That moves on. I guess he went through 40 restaurants before he was caught. Creative people will do what they do. I guess you can also add the everybody have him, but I'm going to throw in there also the Patriarch of Jerusalem as well. But this is going to be controversial, but my cry room is going to be Pope Francis, and for two reasons. Number one, meeting with Whoopi Goldberg. Why? And number two, which was worse than Whoopi Goldberg, when he just had a meeting with I think one of the heads of the New Ways Ministry just recently, who've actually been silenced by his predecessors, by Benedict and JP, St. John Paul II. And the reason was because their advocacy for the LGBTQ plus alphabet community. And now here we go. Francis is having a meeting with them and getting a thumbs up from Jimmy Boy. So for me, it's like, listen, it doesn't matter. So either you don't know who you're talking to. We can give it the benefit of the doubt and say that Pope Francis didn't know who he was meeting with. Well, number one, that makes you incompetent. You should have checked. You should check who you're meeting with before you check with them. Or number two, you knew who you were meeting with and you met with them anyways because do you support these things that are contrary to the faith? So I got Pope Francis in the crowd room this week.
That's a good call, just because you don't have to. No, I mean, you don't have to go to certain priests' level of trolling of the Holy Father. It's very okay to question what the Holy Father is doing. I mean, we should all do that, but still pray for him and so forth.
Absolutely,
John. Which we know you do, Fawaz. I'm not putting you on blast.
Yeah, no, I get it.
You've made that point multiple times.
No worries, bud.
John, saint of the week and cry room. Just quiet, Steve.
Yeah. Yeah. So for my saint of the week, I'm going to go. I came across an article by Josh Hawley where he's reiterating the cry that Leo XIII made, and so it's good. I found out, thanks to some reverend members here of this group, that he's not actually a Catholic, but he's, as one of you mentioned, like he's stuck up for Catholics when the whole FBI thing came out, and what he says here is just really sensible. And he makes in there a really good recommendation too. It's a practical recommendation. It's really kind of that solutions watch sort of thing, to do what you can locally to support folks who are in America, right? So if you got a choice, if it costs a little bit more money, it's something you really need, buy from someone locally, instead of trying to get something that's a few bucks cheaper off Amazon from China. I found this out the hard way before, like, buy nice so you don't have to buy twice. And usually if it's someone local like that, they're going to do a pretty good job because, 9 times out of 10, at least, you can always be burned because they know that word gets around if they don't do it well. So that's one way to help somebody out. So Josh Hawley, some good recommendations there in a little article that he's written for Compact Mag. And then my cry room is going to be Ben Shapiro, thanks to the rant he went on against Tucker / Vivek Ramaswamy. And you can see that a switch has flipped for the poor guy. He still speaks, with that incredibly sharp wit, that has the Egyptian guy that we saw the clip of earlier, call him, one of the smartest people out there, at least as far as that quick wit goes. That's what made him famous. Those early clips of him with real witty things to say back immediately in a debate. But a switch has flipped after, what happened on October 7th. And he's just saying some horribly diabolical things, and he needs to maybe sit in the cry room for a second and come back to his senses so he doesn't just lose it.
Hey, Jonathan, is this cry room sponsored by ExpressVPN?
Promo code.
Let's remember to do it next time. Get some moolah here.
Promo code Shapiro40. Get 40% off. Excellent points, John. Steve.
Man,
how dare you?
You're fine. I got you. You can speak now. Okay.
Look near me. My cry room, I was going to go with Shapiro, so I got outstaged by that one. So I'll do an easy one. I'll go with Brandon. Plus, I think that meme is great. If anybody's seen the movie Office Space, you know what it comes from. 2 proxy wars at the same time.
Oh, that's perfect. Perfect.
My saint of the week, I'm going to go with the 2 authors, Joshua Charles and Alex Torres. They wrote the book Persecuted from Within, How Saints Endured Crisis in the Church. I doubt it would be as bestsellers like they did with Antichrist because people like the drama. So prove me wrong out there, ladies and gents. Buy something that's actually good. I think this is better than Antichrist personally, just because this is more of like getting our minds right for what's going on. Example, say Mary McKillop was I have a couple sermons on the channel on her. So if you want to check it out, just type in her name. She's all from Australia. She got excommunicated by the bishop. Her mom wrote a letter just blasting the bishop. And McKillop said, that letter exonerates me, vindicates me. But she also lamented her personal vindication that was not worth the cost of attacking her bishop. She warned one of her sisters never to say a word against the bishop or anyone who is against them. Quote, if we cannot speak well of their acts, let us be silent. And she said that despite the idea that she was falsely and unjustly excommunicated. So it's just one of those, and then he goes into Bruno. He's got, a lot of things with Alphonsus, all the way up to Sheen. Starts with St. Paul, goes all the way to Full Sheen, has some splashes of PO in there. So I think great on them for doing that work. And hopefully it gets as many sales or more than Antichrist. But again, just knowing now people buy, I doubt they will, but good the book.
Excellent. All right. Saint of the week is the state of Arkansas for ordering Chinese companies to divest their agricultural land. I think Texas needs to do that as well. Kick the Chinese out. That needs to be done across these United States. No foreign country should own land in these United States, especially the Chinese. And my cry room goes to the Daily Wire for the parody of, I thought it was a parody of Snow White. Apparently the Daily Wire is putting out their own version of Snow White. It was a 30-second teaser with Beth Cooper. I don't care about any of these people. It just looks terrible. And that's not a knock on Cooper or any, it just looks low rent, especially for what the Daily Wire is charging you people to watch their stuff. Most of that looks like stock footage, except for her feet and the end. Like that looks like stock footage. I actually thought when this was released that they were just making a parody and taking advantage of the fact that Disney's going to sync their own Snow White movie
Who's Cooper?
That's stock footage right there. That is 100%. That's stock footage right there as well. And then this turn, I don't know who's directing her. Maybe a blind person. But this turn, the dress is awful. The hair looks like garbage, and she's wearing too much makeup, and they made her over emote. And the title, it's just there's so much wrong with it that we want to talk about winning concert. We want to win the culture war. That ain't it. Especially for the amount of money that you're being told that will do so. But
TAC at the movies is back, baby.
That looks like Ben Shapiro with makeup.
Yeah, that's Beth Cooper.
Who's Beth Cooper?
Beth Cooper works for the Daily Wire, and she looks exactly like Ben Shapiro.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's weird. That's why he hired her. It's that narcissist.
Yeah, apparently, I don't know, but she's much taller than he is, though, so that's a negative for Ben. They're never in the same place at the same time, kind of like Batman and Bruce Wayne. But that's my cry room, because you can't win culture with garbage like that. I mean, I'm sure anybody with a 4K camera and Adobe Pro editing software can make a better trailer than that. So there you go. That's my tirade on that. All right, folks, that's it for this episode of News from the Pew. Please like, subscribe, and share the News from the Pew, and we will talk to y'all next week. God bless, and Viva Cristo Rey.
Them.